Well, Art, it's always good to have you on and chat about Moosemeat Marmalade. It's one of our favorite shows here, of course. But you guys were not immune to COVID restrictions shooting this sixth season, so it's primarily in Western Canada. Did you find that restrictive, or is that kind of like right up your alley? I mean, you live there, you know the area like the back of your hand, and where to get what and who's who in the zoo?
Well, it's from an administrative end, it was very restrictive. We've even had a couple of communities bail because they were isolated and they had blocked off the whole community. And so we had to cancel a couple of, had to rewrite a couple episodes and find new places. So we started out close by, like we did some ones on the island, and then we started branching out. Then we finally made it as far away as the exotic town of North Battleford.
Well, that's pretty far from where you're located. Okay, I know that season 6 kicks off hunting squirrels. I'm slightly scared to ask you about that. And did we eat them?
Oh, of course.
No.
We eat everything we can.
I know you do. That's why we love your show, but I don't know the squirrels, man.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with the meat. It's actually pretty good, and I think the people that ate it were really surprised at how good it tasted. I was going for like the Colonel's recipe idea of 11 herbs and spices. I researched them and I used them on the squirrel meat, and people really loved it. It's very similar to rabbit.
Okay, which I guess isn't super surprising. How many squirrels would it take to feed like one squirrel per person, or do we need 2 squirrels a person?
Oh, you only need about 1 squirrel per person. You cook it in a way where it spreads out, you know. We just made little nuggets, and we had some nice other stuff that we had foraged.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, what's the sides that go with squirrel?
I think I made a mash. I think we roasted potatoes and yams and mashed them with nettle and added some beurre noisette or whatever the heck that brown butter stuff is, and it was really good.
I love. Okay, so does Dan ever get fed up with the adventures of some of the things that you come up with for him to eat? I mean, he's a buttoned up, guy, right? Does he ever just look and go, "I'm not doing that. Come on"?
Well, surprisingly, oh yeah, there was one time he would not eat seal intestines, but I don't know. He's got a thing about seal intestines. He ate moose eyeball and he ate moose intestines, but he wouldn't eat seal intestines.
That's an interesting line to draw. Moose intestines, yes. Seal intestines, no.
Yeah, I don't get the logic, but moose intestines are really, really tasty.
Well, I have never had them. I used to grow up, my grandma used to cook blood sausage a lot.
Right.
And I always that's a comfort food to me. I know for like in my family, for your birthday, you get to decide like what do you want for dinner, right? And blood sausage with mashed potatoes and cream corn used to be one of my go-tos. I think my grandma made it for me probably the last time I was in my early 40s. Like that's one of those comfort things, right?
Well, actually, people might be surprised. Dan has been on my res, and he's been around now, so he's really developed a taste for wild game. He's more disgusted when I put a bunch of modern fancy stuff. He thinks I should stay rustic and basic and traditional.
Well, that's why we love the show. So we're glad that Dan's advocating for the basic, rustic, traditional. I have a question for you. I've got was gifted some deer back straps in my freezer. How should I cook them? I'm worried about them being tough.
No, backstrap can really never be tough because those muscles are not really used. You have to think of the anatomy. Backstraps, they don't get much exercise, so it's always going to be tender. You don't need to slice. So I slice across the grain, so you end up with these medallions. Okay. As long as you sear it, even just sear the outsides and go for the what's that, medium rare. Okay. That's how I would serve it. Put some chimichurri sauce or anything you want over top of that.
Does it have to be marinated?
It's so good that it doesn't need marinating. I just usually go with salt and pepper. But sometimes what I do is I'll dry age steaks. I will wrap each steak individually in a very light cloth, like a cheesecloth, and keep it on the rack in the fridge. Turn it over once in a while. You can go 4 or 5 days, and you'll get a crust on the meat that tells you it's ready, and it just adds a lot more flavor. And it actually kind of tenderizes it as well.
Doing that. I'm stealing that. Okay, back to season 6 of Moosemeat Marmalade. I'll tag you in pictures when I cook it. If they turn out, if I screw it up, I'm not going to drag you down with me. But if it turns out, I'll tag you.
I think the trick will be not to overcook it because, it's a tender meat. It's soft. It cooks really quickly. And if you overcook it, it's going to get dry and rubbery.
Okay, I want it like rarer to medium rare. Okay, so back to season 6, Moosemeat and Marmalade. What was some of the highlights for you, whether it be places, people, foods that you cooked? What are some of the highlights?
Well, I get asked this a lot, but everywhere we go, it's all favorite to me because we get to meet cool people that are doing neat things, and we get treated like gold usually. So it's a new adventure everywhere we go. So there's no such thing in my mind as something being more exotic. I really enjoyed the buffalo hunt in Saskatchewan with the Poundmaker Cree Nation.
Nice.
And then I also enjoyed the boar hunt, the wild boar hunt that we did there right near North Battleford.
I'm assuming wild boar is very strong flavored?
No.
No.
I didn't find it strong at all. It's similar to pork, except maybe a little tiny bit redder, tiny bit stringier, but there's no wild flavor at all.
Okay, I'm putting that on my must-try list then too. You've been doing this for 6 seasons. Is there something that you, like an eye on the prize sort of place, or something that you want to get into your culinary repertoire? Like if you could pick tomorrow somewhere to go or something to try, what would it be?
Well, it would be nice to go to New Zealand and cook with Maori people, or Mexico, Central America, cook with indigenous people there, and especially with all the different things you can do with corn and other local plants. That would be cool. Cooking with other indigenous peoples. Like, we're on our way to Sweden in about 2 or 3 weeks. But we're mostly around the Stockholm place, and there's no Maori activities and hardly any Maori people. They're all in northern Sweden. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know they had settled in Sweden, like moved up to Sweden too. I had no.
They're in most of the Scandinavian countries.
You see, you learn something new every day, especially if you're talking to Art Napoleon.
And the northern parts there, like northern Sweden, it would be a lot like northern Alberta, northeastern BC. It's the Boreal, Northwest Territories, Yukon. That Boreal forest is going to be very similar. So they actually have similar game to what we have. They have moose, they have beaver, grouse, the whole bit.
And this is shooting for season 7 now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Season 7.
There's been such a resurgence in interest among our foods, traditional foods, foraging, medicines. I'm curious what you've thought, because I've certainly seen it in the past couple years. You've been probably noticing it over much longer. What are your thoughts? What's behind it? How come now?
Well, I think I'm not the only Indigenous chef out there that's kind of going back to traditional food sources. There's a few now, and I think we just naturally have the same kind of philosophy of bringing it more to the forefront, and also a lot of us are into food security, food sovereignty, being able to protect those traditional foods. And if you want to be able to protect that, it means you got to protect the habitats. And I've always been a land steward, so it fits right in with my life philosophy. and I'm glad that there's a new interest in it. I would hope that maybe even our show played a little role in that, because we do get emails from fans saying, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. I was cut off from my reserves. I was 60 Scoop, and I'm learning so much about our food traditions from your program. Those are some of the nicest emails we get, knowing that, you know, we're an inspiration for some.
No, you absolutely are. There's a reason why you guys are one of the top shows here on APTN. Art, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We look so forward to the further adventures for season 6 and many more seasons ahead. Thank you so much.
Viva APTN.